Okay, so for this lesson, we're going to be writing a system of linear equations. Whenever you hear the word system for linear equation, it just means you're writing two of them, two equations. And then you're using those to solve what could be an answer for both of those. That's the simple way to say that. And these are all going to be word problems. So I recommend when you hear a number, 7th grade hush, we write it down and label it so that way we can start working on it, okay? Why is everybody not paying attention? Okay. All right, let's look at example 1. A bank teller is counting $20 bills and $10 bills. There are 16 bills that total $200. Write and solve a system of linear equations to find the number of $20 bills and the number of $10 bills. Okay, so first, what was the very first thing the very first sentence told us? Read it. A bank teller is what?
$20.
Okay, so there's $20 bills times we don't know how many, so I just put X next to them. And there's $10 bills, which we don't know how many there are, so that's Y. And did it tell us the total value of bills?
There's 16 bills.
There's 16, but they're 200. There you go. So we know that this equals 200. So there's one equation. Here's the key, guys. I put the values in. This is $20 worth, this is $10 worth, and this is $200 worth. Okay, X and Y stand for the quantity. Okay, when we have the quantity, do we know the total number of bills? How many are there altogether? Look in the equation. Look in the paragraph.
200.
How many bills are there?
16.
So we know there's 16 bills. So we know there's 16 green things. Okay, and we know that if we add the number of 20s plus the number of 10s, we'll get the total number. Now, do I have two equations written? Yeah. So now I can use these two equations to solve for how many $20 bills we have and how many $10 bills we have. Pretty cool, right? There are two different ways you can solve this. You can put it in a table and solve it, or you can use substitution method, which is just algebra. Which one would you all prefer?
Substitution method.
I like substitution method. Substitution method, you just solve for one of these variables and plug it in. So I say we use the X and Y variable because there's no coefficients in front of that. So I'm just going to subtract X. Anthony, are you actually listening or are you just mumbling? Just asking. You look like you're zoning. All right, so now I've solved for Y. So what I can do is I can take this equation and I can plug it in to the top equation wherever Y is. That's going to help me solve for X. Okay, so shall we do that first? X plus 16. So I solve for Y. So this is the answer for Y, this equation. So wherever the Y is in this equation, I plugged in this whole thing where the Y is. So if I equation, this is the quantity of $10 bills I have right here. So that means I have 4 $10 bills. So in the original equation, or actually in this second equation, I could plug in 4 here, and it'll tell me how many $20 bills. I have 20x plus 10 times, what was Y? Was negative x plus 16, right? Equals 200. Does everybody understand what I did there? Only you, Wally, said yes.
Yes.
What did I do? Here you can see the negative x plus 16. I plugged it in. So now I just solve for x. Okay, so I'm going to distribute here. 10 times that stuff. I'm just going to rewrite the first part. 20x. What's 10 times negative x?
Negative 10.
Negative 10x. What is 10 times 16? 160, right? Please tell me you know what 10 times 16 is.
Yes.
160.
160.
All right, so now we can combine like terms. So these both have an x with them, so let's subtract. What's 20 minus 10?
10.
Yep. 10x plus 160 equals 200. Now, to get the x by itself, I move the 160, which I would do what?
You would subtract.
Mm-hmm. So I get 10x equals, what's 200 minus 160?
40.
Good. And get the x by itself, I do what?
Now you divide.
Yep. So x equals, what is 40 divided by 10? Okay, so I have 4 x's, which means I have 4 $10 bills. Right? Because if I go back and look, I have x equals 4. So I have, what was that equation? Y equals negative x plus 16, right? That's what we plugged in up here. So where that x is, now I just plug in a 4.
So negative 4?
Correct, negative. You just keep the negative. So what's negative 4 plus 16?
Positive 12.
So I have 12 $20 bills and 4 $10 bills. Any questions? This is the kind of math you're going to do in this lesson, so make sure if you have a question, you ask it. All right, let's do on your own number 1 on your paper. You don't have to draw the picture. I'm doing it for the lecture purposes.
How many O's are we doing? 3?
I haven't looked, probably. Yeah, 3. Okay, so the length L of the rectangle is 1 more than 3 times the width. Write and solve a system of linear equations to find the dimension of the rectangle. Okay, so what did you hear? The length is what? Read it.
The length is 42. No.
Read. The length is,
It's 1 more than 3 times.
so 3 times what?
3 times
1 more than 3w, so 3w plus 1. Does that make sense? Length is 1 more than 3 times w, so you do 3w plus 1. Okay, how do you solve for perimeter? Do you guys remember how to solve for perimeter on here?
Oh, yeah.
2 times length plus 2 times width.
2 lengths plus 2 widths. Now, do I have 2 equations?
Yeah.
Here's the really cool part. Look, this one up here is already solved for L. So I just take this whole thing and I plug it in where that L is. So I'm going to say P. What is P, by the way?
Perimeter.
Yeah, but what does it equal?
42.
So wherever this P is over here, I can actually put 42. So then I solve. I put 42 equals 2 times, what's the equation I'm putting in for L?
3.
Keep going.
3 times 1.
3w plus 1.
3w plus 1 half.
And then plus 2w at the end. Now I just solve for w. So I have 42 equals, I need to distribute 2 times the 3 and 2 times the 1. What's 2 times 3? 6w. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? Now let's combine like terms. We have 6w and 2w that we can combine, right? So I'm just going to rewrite. What's 6w plus 2w?
What's what?
6w plus 2w.
8w.
Very good. All right, now I need the w by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2. So then I get 40 equals 8w. Get the 8 away from W, divide. So what's my W equal?
5.
Very good. Now can I solve for L? Yeah, I just plug in the 5 where the W is. So I could say L equals 3 times 5 plus 1. What's 3 times 5? Plus 1? 16. So my length is 16 and my width is 5. This was a word problem, so I need a label. Centimeters on both of those. Good. Any questions on how we did that? You know how to do this because you're going to do it on your paper. Good. Lady work.
Don't we all?
Right, don't we all? All right, example 2. The sum, okay, listen. The sum of two numbers is 35. Can I make an equation off that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what could I say?
30. Wait, what?
The sum of two numbers is 35. We don't know the numbers.
2x equals 35.
Very good. X plus y equals 35. So there's one equation, and all we did was read one sentence. The second number y is equal to, so you already heard it. You say y is equal to
Y equals
4 times the first number x. Do I have two equations?
yeah.
Yay!
This is number 2. No.
This is example 2. And all they wanted you to do is write the two equations.
What
Woo!
was it?
That was it. Well, in theirs they have you pick A, B, C, or D, but let's just get the right answer. So the answer to this would be which one?
B.
B.
Yep.
Is it B?
B. Yeah, on this one they just wanted you to write the equations. Woohoo!
I wish everything was like this.
All right, let's do example 3. All right, the table shows the altitudes in feet of two jets after X number of minutes. After how many minutes do the jets have the same altitude? So plot the points and draw, or use the slopes and y-intercepts to write the equations. I'm a fan of not graphing. So we need to create two equations using this information and then solve for X, because that's how many minutes it is. Okay, so for the first equation, Airbus A, what's my slope? Just pick 2 points to find my slope.
1 over 1. So,
It's not 1 over 1.
1 over 1,000.
It's 1,000
I was looking
Over.
at the graph.
1. Don't look at the graph. I mean, that's correct on the graph. Well, but even on the graph, it's 1,000 over 1. Look at how they labeled
And
it.
equals 0,
Oh, yeah.
and then it'd be.
Okay, so the slope is 1,000 on this one. So, and you can see, where does this one start, this line? So you know my y-intercept is 0. So the equation for Airbus A is y equals 1,000 x plus 0. So you can just leave off the plus 0. That makes sense?
Yes.
So this is Airbus A. Airbus B, we need to make an equation, so let's look at it and make 2 points. So we have 0 and 9,000 and 1 and 8,500. So let's use our equation. We're going to say 9,000 minus 8,500 over 0 minus 1. So what's 9,000 minus 8,500?
500.
Negative 500
Negative 500.
over, oh, that's positive, you're right. It becomes a negative because of the bottom. My bad. Over negative 1, which becomes negative 500. That's what I was trying to get at, sorry.
I'm not confused all the time.
My fault. Okay, now looking at this table, where does it cross the y line? When the x is 0, where does it cross the y? See the x is 0 here? Where does it cross the y?
9,000.
There we go. I was gonna say I've circled it 3 times, guys. So that's my y-intercept. So I'm gonna say y equals, my slope is negative 500, and then it crosses the y line at 9,000. So one of these planes is way at 9,000 and coming down because the slope is negative. The other plane is at 0 and going up. So, they do this in real life. They make sure with one plane going up, one plane coming down, they don't meet in the middle. So that's when I don't know if you've ever heard they have an airplane slow down before landing or speed up for takeoff. This is what they're doing. What we're about to find out is at this speed, when would these 2 planes hit each other? And if we can calculate that, then we make one plane speed up, so that way it passes and then the other one can land, and vice versa. This is real math, guys. Okay, so now that we have our 2 equations, we can solve for x, right? Which is how many minutes they would be at the exact same altitude.
Over 6 minutes.
So one of them is already solved, right? The y. So let's just plug that in here, and then we can solve for x. So I'm going to turn my page here. So we're going to say 1,000x equals negative 500x plus 9,000. So I plug in 1,000x here equals negative 500x plus 9,000 is where they started at. Good. All right, so now let's get the x's on the same side. So I'm going to add 500x here. Follow along. Plus 500x here. So then I get 1,500x equals, oops, that should be 9,000. 9,000. Now how do I get the x by itself?
Divide.
Yep. Write this down. So I'm left with x equals, what's 9,000 divided by 1,500? You could lop off 2 zeros and say how many times can 15 go into 90? Because when the zeros are here, you just cross them off.
Wait, no.
6. 15 times 6.
She had it right there. It says x equals.
It's also in your book. Okay, so 6 what? 6 minutes. So at 6 minutes, these 2 planes would crash unless you make them change directions and change speeds.
Would you work for the airport?
No, it's a very high stress job. Well, I would work for the actual airport, but I would not work for the tower.
Wow.
That's the highest suicide rate, is people who are air traffic controllers.
Why?
They're responsible for thousands of lives in the air, and if they make a mistake, it's likely to kill people.
Wow.
You can't make mistakes.
Stressful.
I'm good. I'll go be a janitor in the airport.
Yeah,
If I forget to put a trash bag in, nobody's gonna die.
I'm gonna be a junior.
That's scary when like
Yeah, it's a high stress job. No thanks.
I mean, it's kind of like working in a hospital, but it's like,
It's a little different.
yeah,
It's a little different.
Quite different.
People coming into the hospital are already hurt. You're doing your job to save them. If you mess up, technically they are the ones that got hurt in the first place.
Yeah.
They're in the airplane perfectly fine, and you make a plane crash. It's not okay. Anyways, personal opinions.
Imagine
All right.
Imagine you slow an airplane down and crash it.
Yep. Nope. Can't do it. All right. The sum of 2 numbers is 20. Is that an equation already?
X plus y equals 20.
There's my first equation.
Sorry, I'm not feeling good.
I know. I can tell you're struggling. That's okay. We're almost done, and then you can work on your other thing and do this later. Okay, the next one. The second number is 3 times the first number. So what was our second number? Y equals 3 times the first number, which was x. Write and solve a system of equations to find the 2 numbers. All right, have we written our equations? So now we just need to solve. This one is beautifully already solved for y, so let's just plug it in there. So I get x plus 3x equals 20. What is 1x plus 3x?
1x plus 3x equals 4x.
And then how do I get the x by itself?
Divide.
Very good. So then x equals what?
5. Equals 5.
Good. Now I can just take this 5 and plug it in where the x is. So then I get y equals 3 times 5. Well, what's 3 times 5?
15.
15.
So y equals 15.
So do I have my two
Yeah, so it would be
x and y?
15x.
And then there's a proper way. If you're not going to box each of these, you need to write it as a point. So I would say 5, comma 15. I'll take either answer. You can have x equals 5, y equals 5, and circle them, or you can write the point. Either way is fine. But you need to know that those are the two ways you would write it. Good? Everybody got that? All right. Number 3. In example 3, the altitude of the Boeing 777 decreases 800 feet per minute. What did we originally have it as? Negative what? What was the slope of the original one? Negative 500. Now they're saying it's going 800 feet. So let's write our two equations. The first equation we had was y equals 1000x, right? And the second equation we had was y equals, it used to be negative 500. We're changing it to negative 800x. And where did it start? How high up was this plane? 9,000. So now it says, after how many minutes do these jets have the same altitude?
6 minutes.
No, that was at negative 500. Now we're at negative 800, so now we have to solve it again.
Oh.
So we're going to plug in this 1000x where that y is at the front. So we're going to say 1000x equals negative 800 plus, show your work on your paper, please. So be right, this is on your own, write it down. All right, so let's move that 800 to the other side. So plus 800x plus 800x. So I get 1800x equals 9,000. How do I get x by itself? Divide by 1800. So 9,000 divided by 1800 is what?
2.
Try again.
Divided by
It's not 9 into 18,
200.
it's 18 into 90.
Oh no.
Dang. Okay.
Should be,
5?
5.
5. Okay, sorry.
that's fine. So at 5 minutes, these two planes will be at the same altitude. Now hopefully they're on different runways. One's landing, one's taking off. So they'll be coming like this, and then at one point they'll be at the same. And keep going.
Can both planes land together like if one like?
Not on the same runway.
Why not? What would happen?
Well, you have jet streams and all that stuff you got to worry about. Now, if one was taking off, a mile at this end of the runway and one was landing at the other end, theoretically would work. I don't think they like putting them that close together, one landing, one taking off, because if this guy can't all of a sudden take off and has to land, this guy is not going to be able to stop before the other guy, and gets dicey. They do land them and take them off pretty quickly, but they do leave a little bit more than that. So
Yeah, sounds depressing.
it's just high stress job. All right, so this is lesson 3.5. You've already done OYO numbers 1 through 3. So you can turn that in. You need to do, I'm changing this for Abraham. The practice problem solving, PPS, numbers 4 through 16. Okay?
The exercises?
Yep.
4, 6, 3.
Well, that's just like basically 2 pages. Practice problem.
You may skip number 11. I was going to say, I think there was one I didn't really care. Skip number 11. All right, that's it.